Good evening, members, officers, visitors and members of the public. I'm Councillor Mike Baldock and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. The meeting should be recorded and proceedings will be conducted in accordance with the Council's constitution, including procedural rules which are available on the Council's website. Item 1. Emergency evacuation procedure. There's no planned evacuation drill this evening and accordingly, if the alarm sounds, it is to be treated as a genuine need to evacuate. Our emergency exits to my right and opposite the lifts. Please do not use the lifts. On exiting, you will be directed to the assembly point, and it is important that you remain there and do not return to the building until I have announced that it is safe to do so. If anyone present will need assistance in evacuating, could you please inform me now so that we can make necessary arrangements to assist you? Members must consider each application and everything that is said in the meeting concerning the application and make their decision based solely on their planning judgment of the information available to them. Following a decision by members, delegated authority is given to the planning officer to issue the decision notice. Planning permission is not granted or refused until the issue of that decision notice. Any member of the council who is not a member of the planning committee may attend as a visiting member and may speak having given prior notification. Such visiting members may of course include ward members, and whilst visiting members can speak on an application, they are not permitted to vote. Any member acting as a substitute on the planning committee must have undertaken appropriate training before doing so. Members must remain in the meeting for the whole time that each item is being debated and should not vote on that item unless they have done so. I would now like to welcome our public speakers and remind that you have 3 minutes to speak and an audible warning of time will be given when there are 30 seconds remaining. If the meeting is deferred to conduct a site meeting, you may speak both at this meeting and at the site meeting and when it comes back to the planning committee. Item 2, apologies for absence and substitutes.
Thank you, Chair. I have apologies for absence from Councillor Richard Palmer, who's substituted by Councillor Lloyd Chapman, Councillor Kieran Golding, who's substituted by Councillor Anne Kavanagh, Councillor Karen Watson, who's substituted by Councillor Angela Harrison, Councillor Julian Speed, who is substituted by Tara No, Councillor Elliot Jays, who is substituted by Derek Harnell, Councillor Ben Martin, Councillor Andy Booth, Councillor Claire Martin and Councillor Simon Clark. Thank you.
Can I invite members' declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests under the Localism Act 2011 and disclosable non-pecuniary interests under the Code of Conduct? I would like to remind the meeting that where it is possible that a fair-minded and informed observer, having considered the facts, would conclude that there is a real possibility that a member might be predetermined or biased on any agenda item, the member should declare this possibility and leave the room whilst the item is considered. Any Councillor Stephen?
Yeah, just for information, I'm a volunteer down at the Lloyd's Wharf on the Raybell sailing barge, and I attend down there every Monday. But I have an open mind and I would just like to speak on it later. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Noe.
Thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. Yes, I have a non-pecuniary interest. I'm the ward councillor for Sheppey East, so item 7 is in East Church. I come here with an open mind and I am not biased.
Lovely. Anybody else? Okay. Item 5 is reports for the planning committee. The first item is in the minutes. 2 sets of minutes, I think. Right. First, we have the minutes of the planning committee on Thursday, the 7th November 2024. I wasn't at this meeting, so if I could have a proposer. Councillor Braun proposes. Seconder, please. Councillor Winklis, all those in favour? Lovely. And the minutes of the Extraordinary Planning Committee on the 26th of November 2024. I'm happy to propose. Councillor Winklis, all those in favour? That's agreed. Thank you. Now we'll return to deferred item 1. 22/502-692 full selling land north of Perry Lee. I'll ask the officer to provide any updates.
Thank you, Chair. There's no updates.
In that case, can I ask Parish Councillor Sue Henderson, representing Selling Parish Council, please? Push the large button in the middle and then you'll get a 30-second reminder.
Thank you for your time again today. Selling Parish Council has consistently objected to this application through our comments online, at the previous planning meeting, at the on-site meeting and also at this meeting. We stand by all the reasons we have given for refusal. We also support the concerns of local residents. With regard to requirements of conditions, 7.61 in the report, as the previous permission has been implemented, there is no requirement to include the standard time limit for implementation. As the applicant has consistently played the system, it is disappointing that there is no requirement to include a standard time limit for implementation. Can I suggest that if it's at all possible that you do actually add that as a condition, because I believe that in fact he won't start this unless there is one. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. Gardner to speak, please? Yep. Thank you.
Thank you for permitting me to talk. I talk on behalf of the residents of Grove Road. I wish to remind the Planning Committee we're here tonight as a result of Swale Borough Council not enforcing the multiple Swale Borough Council enforcement notices since 2017 and the original dismissal from the Secretary of State. In his applications and appeals, the applicant did not tell the truth and blatantly ignored the enforcement notices. I have checked my calculations regarding the increase from the approved building volume to the amended building volume. It is just under twice the size. I am aware that Swale Borough Council have advised that there is no definition of what constitutes a minor material amendment. However, any rational person would conclude that a near doubling of the size and a change from 4 to 10 doors is not minor. The landscaping, if installed, will not be able to fully disguise what is in fact an industrial building. The amended building size is not suitable for a small rural property and will not provide any employment. The applicant has never given a credible reason why so many containers are necessary for farming the land, when for the last 37 years it has only been used for grazing. Therefore, it's reasonable to expect the applicant has other purposes in mind. I'm aware that its use is not an issue for Swale Borough Council, but it is an issue for the local residents. The applicant did not attend site when 2 substantial fires were on his premises. Swale Borough Council tried to be helpful with guidance for the approved building. This was disregarded by the applicant by the submission of the amended application. Based on the applicant's history of totally ignoring Swale Borough Council's enforcement notices, it is fanciful to expect him to follow the landscaping conditions applicable to the amended building. Therefore, there will be more upset from the local residents, and this ongoing saga will run on into the future. The applicant has gamed the planning system over many years at considerable expense to Swale Borough Council. To approve this amended building for unspecified purposes would be to reward him for not telling the truth, ignoring the enforcement notices, condoning his antisocial behaviour and undermining the authority of Swale Borough Council. In summary, this ongoing travesty should be brought to a halt by refusal of this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Councillor. I'll open the debate. Anyone wish to speak on this? Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair. Could the officer again please put up the actual site for us?
Can we have the visuals, please?
Right, okay.
Councillor Winklis, you wish to...
Right, have you got any, my usual question I ask very often at these meetings, any
Any photos?
pictures, photos, please? Right. Okay, thanks for that. I do recall we had a site meeting there, which I did attend. I would agree with the two speakers tonight. I think to allow this to go ahead would be a further blight on the area. So, thank you very much.
Councillor Thompson.
I'd just like to bring in the fact that it's a small rural area with a lovely footpath that runs along the top. That vision is from the footpath. The building that was there is substantially big enough for whatever purpose it may be used for, of which we don't know. There isn't a great deal of agricultural activity, and to increase its size by some nearly 89% in volume is just not acceptable in an area of outstanding natural beauty. That's my view.
Councillor Hunt.
Chair, there's quite a few members on the committee tonight that weren't here previously when we've discussed this, and I'm probably not knowing exactly the details. Is it possible for an officer to just quickly go through and show exactly what it is that we're discussing?
Yes, they didn't avail themselves of the opportunity to come to the site visit, even if they didn't know they were going to sub. Can we just have a quick summary of the...
Absolutely. Evening, councillors. This application is land to the north of Grove Road, Perry Lee. The existing site is shown on the aerial photos there. There's a string of containers at the eastern boundary of the site and an area of pallet storage, some of which is lawful, to the south at the access road. And planning permission was granted previously for the erection of a building that would measure 28 metres by 7 metres with an eaves height of 2.8 metres and a ridge height of 3.8 metres. A certificate of lawfulness has been granted to confirm that that permission has been implemented and so remains live and is therefore able to be varied under the terms of section 73 of the planning application, which allows for what's referred to as minor material amendments. A bund was proposed around that building, which you can see particularly on the floor plans, but at points on the elevations. This is the amended proposal. It's 4 metres wider, 1 metre deeper, and 1.1 metres taller. So it'd have measure 8 by 32 metres, 4.2 to the eaves and 4.9 to the ridge. It would have 10 doors to the front rather than the 4 that were previously approved. And rather than the bund, there would be a landscaping provision which would be secured by one of the amended conditions which has been suggested. That's the approach to the site with the pallets in fairly recent condition. That's a view towards the footpath from the access or once you're into the site. There's an existing building shown on the right-hand side of that picture there, and again there, and that's the containers at the east boundary of the site, which are intended to be put inside the building, and that's the longer view from the public footpath which runs to the west, distant from where the building would be. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Hunt?
Thanks for that. Good to be able to see it again. My view on this is that obviously it's going to be, if this is approved, very different to what is on site at the moment. But the fact is that there is planning permission and it's been implemented because of the foundations for a building that could be there. And the only change that we're looking at is that, I'd call it slight, an increase in the height, an increase in the width of the building. And that's the bit that we need to be looking at of what, if that's what impact that is going to have, not the whole building itself. And I think that with all these containers, having this approved gives the conditions and makes the landowner clear up this site, get those containers into the building, and it being looking a lot better. So I completely agree with the officers on this one.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Marchington, who was on the site visit.
Is there any limitation we can put as to what the commercial use of the building will be after? I mean, is it on rural ground? That's the question. Because I've got a question to ask after if it is.
Ian?
Thank you, Chair. The intention of the building is to contain the containers, which in themselves are used for storage of items associated with the use of the land and the operation of a pallet business from the site, and a condition would be is suggested to be imposed to that effect.
Can you just confirm that the containers are supposed to be related to the land itself that it's being used for?
There's no permission for them to be used for any other purpose other than associate. There's no permission for the containers to be at the land.
Councillor Marchington.
Yes, thank you. The discussions that were taken when we were on the site visit and other times, people have seen saying that they've only seen the movement of pallets and bits and pieces like this. But broken up pallets, stocked and treated, are becoming a very fast growing business for internal wall decor in this country. Very fast growing at this present moment in time. And I know 2 pubs have just been down there in this year. And several, even my daughter has got the suddenly tweaked it. Oh, that's pallets, you know, and it's becoming a very fast growing business. And I see any linked furniture type of cladding that goes with that thing. So the reason why I asked was if they started a pallet supply business as in building commodity, would that still be legal on it? That's all I ask. Thank you.
Can you confirm what the position would be?
The condition would allow for the operation from the pallet business, but it required the items to be kept within the building.
Councillor Thompson.
I just want to get something clear. If it's already got permission for a building, with that permission, was there a condition that those containers, because it was confusing on site, do they all disappear? Can you impose that, or is there currently how can I put it, a break of policy anyway, and therefore that hasn't been implemented either? So what's the score on the, if we gave permission, which I wouldn't be interested in, will those containers disappear? And at the moment it appears that that's not the case, and the pallets will stay outside, because when we visited the site you couldn't actually get to the containers because of the pallets. So it felt to me as if it's not an achievable thing. So we need some sort of clarification on what's happening to the containers, what's happening to the pallets, if anything's agreed, and actually what's agreed now before the larger building.
Can we have clarity on the position of the containers, please?
Sure. Thank you, Chair. The condition that was imposed before and would be imposed again would require all the containers to be moved within the building within a specified time, and then once after that time any that haven't been moved within the building would need to be removed from the site. That's a requirement of the condition. There's an area of the site where the external storage of pallets is lawful, and so that's not addressed by the requirements of the condition. But a lot of this pallet storage that is going on is understood to go beyond the area that is lawful.
Yes, come back.
I think that's the issue. Is there's no clarity in what is the area, because there were two site applications, weren't there? And one was in breach and one wasn't. So it makes us feel that it's never going to be sorted out. What will happen is the containers will stay there because they're still there now. The pallet business will carry on expanding, or it will stay there, and that won't change. There's already a building there which is adequately big enough to make that happen, which isn't utilised for that purpose. It's now got permission for another building, which is substantially big enough. And also, I think Councillor Hunt might like to know that those containers won't fit in either building fully. So we're then told they'll be taken away, and there's no logical sense to put the containers in the building because it's a building. So something's not adding up, something's not truthful somewhere, because they're not going to move the containers in the building because it's not cost effective and sensible. So what clarification or what sort of confidence do we get that if there's any other permissions given, that this site will be cleared and will only function in operating a pallet business? Because it doesn't appear to be operating as a pallet business.
Yep, please come in.
Thank you, Chair. The condition that's suggested says any container within the application site that is not repositioned within the building hereby permitted shall be removed from the site within 1 calendar month of the substantial completion of the building. So that would, once the building is substantially complete, which is a point which we're nowhere near at this stage because they've only implemented it, they haven't taken it any further. Once it's complete, anything that's not there, and any containers that haven't been moved within the site would have to be cleared. The containers don't necessarily have to go inside the building. It could just be used for storage purposes in association with the land, and then all the containers would have to go. If that condition is breached and not complied with, then we'd have options at that point in time around enforcement, breach of condition notices, planning enforcement notices, whatever that may be. And in relation to the pallets, as I said, part of the pallet presence at the site is lawful, and that's not targeted by this permission, but anything that isn't could be the subject of enforcement investigations anyway. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Just come back, Chair. So currently, there's already a breach. There's an unlawful use of the pallets. Can we be shown that area that it's encroached or come from or over?
Through Chair, it'd take me a while to find the relevant plan. I can show you where the pallets are on an aerial photo. I haven't got the plan for the certificate of lawfulness in front of me, but I could endeavour to find it in a couple of minutes.
Oh, okay,
If you
thanks.
can show us the photo, I think we know where they should.
Because for me, the key is that the first building is substantially big enough to operate the business within. And I think the fact that there's been a sort of multiple uses and storage of things, there's already an adequate building there. It's clearly not being used for agricultural purposes. And then when someone does put in an agricultural application in the future, it then proves hard for them. I think we need to look at the fact that the original application is substantially big enough to operate a pallet, as Councillor Marchington said, to dismantle pallets and then repurpose them. That would be perfectly adequate, and then all the containers can go, all the ancillary stuff that's stored within them can go in the building. I don't think we should be looking at a much larger building within such a small footprint, within an AONB with a footpath. It needs to be looked at overall, and I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I am concerned about whether or not there's been a demonstrable need, given that most of the containers you couldn't actually access because they were overgrown, full of brambles in front of them, which brings into question the value and relevance of what's in them, or the need for them, to the landholding itself, which isn't that huge, if I'm correct. So that concerns me. Also, from the footpath, you could see where the planned building would go, the building that has permission. It would already have an impact. The larger building would obviously have more of an impact. As Councillor Thompson said, it is in the AONB. It's doubtful that any screening would be sufficient, because it might be all right in summer once the trees have grown, but in the autumn and winter, it's going to be quite visible from that footpath. Can you show us well, you're looking for one picture already, aren't you? Is that the view from the footpath, isn't it? Yeah. So, I mean, that building that's there is not part of the application. The building would go to the left of that. The proposed building would be higher than those sheds, is that correct?
Yes, it is, Chair.
As you can see, it is a sort of shed. As you can see, that is already quite visible from the footpath, along with all the containers. There is a potential for quite a visual impact. You're looking for the pallet picture, aren't you?
At the same time, Chair, I thought I'd put that one up because you asked about the
Yep.
building being taller than the other one. I've not found it yet, bear with me.
Not wanting to overload the officer at the moment. Are we nearly there? No. Councillor Kavanagh.
I appreciate.
Sorry, I do apologise. I actually got Councillor Braun first.
I just wanted to say, I could be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure last time we discussed this, people were questioning that the building was too small for all of the containers, and now people are saying it's too big. I frankly don't understand the point of just talking in circles.
Okay. Councillor Kavanagh?
I appreciate. I wasn't at the site visit. I listened to what Councillor Thompson said. There's something that doesn't add up. My fear is you get a huge shed and those containers are still going to be there, because clearly, from what people have said, they're not being used at the moment. It's going to be a pain to remove them. They are incredibly unsightly. It would be far better to know exactly what someone needed, and then we would know what dimensions they might, not just to put another building for whatever purpose in a field. That would probably be the best looking thing in the field, but those containers, it's just not appropriate.
Did we confirm that you couldn't get two of those containers, one on top of each other, in the new building?
Through Chair, the height of a standard shipping container is 8'6" so 2 on top of each other would be 17 foot. The building is 4.9 metres, which is 16 foot. So no.
Okay. Are you still waiting to see the map of? Okay, Councillor Thompson.
I think the key is, as you pointed out, it's need. If it was a genuine application, the person would come forward with a business proposal, with an idea, approaching the locals and the parish council saying, this is what I'd like to do. What are your views on that? There's nothing. There's no idea of what's going to be there apart from pallets. But that in itself means that's going to carry on functioning outside, because why would you want to keep bringing them in and out? Something doesn't add up. So I feel that the original building is completely adequate for what's needed. Whatever's stored in the containers would easily be transported into the building when it's finished. Giving permission for a much larger building, which still can't contain the containers, means that they'll have to be moved off site anyway. So we're just giving permission for a bigger building with no better result for locals. So I don't see why we'd want to do that in the AONB. I don't understand that. There isn't a need for this building.
Officer.
Thank you for your patience, councillors. This is the site plan from the certificate of lawfulness relating to the storage of pallets. apologies for not being the most clear. That's the existing building at the site with the access track running up to here, which is the main road there. On the other plans I've shown, you could see where the site opens out from the access, so that's the line there. So if we transpose that over to the that plan, you can see we're talking about this area crudely there.
So that's the limit that the pallets should be stored.
With the benefit of a certificate of lawfulness, yeah.
And in actual fact, it's about 3/4 of the way down that road at the moment, or track. Okay, anybody else? Councillor Carnell.
Thank you, Chair. It says there's 17 of these containers. So would he get 17 in width-wise, let alone on?
No.
No.
Okay, if there's nobody else, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Abstentions? 2. Okay, that has fallen. Do I have any further recommendations? Okay, I'm going to propose a couple of suggestions. I think there is visual harm. The larger building would create visual harm in the countryside. There doesn't appear to be a proven need for the building. That's as far as I can go. I don't know if anybody else has anything they would like to suggest. Councillor Winklis.
As I said earlier, after visiting the site, I think the actual access basically is not capable of any form of expansion there. Basically, I mean, we walked right down the track, we had a good look at it. Also, we went to the top of the field looking down as that picture shows. And I think, as I said in my earlier comments, a total blight, further blight on the landscape in a very scenic area. I think that's.
Okay, I'm not sure access would be a good one on this one, but Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, it's just one for the AONB in that their new one is to further the purposes of the AONB, and this would completely contradict that. So I feel we could probably put something in about the AONB.
Can I suggest we take a 10-minute deferral? That's agreeable?
I'm in agreement to that, sir.
Okay, do you want to take a vote on it, or shall we just do it? Yep. Okay, we will reconvene at 10 to 8. Okay, thank you for your forbearance. We've got a proposal what I'd like to put to you. If I can ask the officer to read out what we've ready to propose.
Thank you, Chair. The wording has been put that the proposed development, by virtue of its increased scale and appearance, would have a detrimental impact on the rural character and appearance of the site and the surrounding area. The proposal for which a need has not been demonstrated would therefore not further conserve and enhance the natural beauty of the national landscape. The proposal is therefore unacceptable and contrary to the local plan, and we'd, with the Chair's agreement, enter the specific policies of that local plan in due course.
So if we can, I'll propose that. I'll propose that with seeking your delegation to officers and ward members and myself to agree with final wording. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Thompson. Any discussion? Those in favour, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Those against? 1, 2, and any abstentions? Okay, thank you. That motion is passed. We'll move on to the next, which means that the minutes. Yep. I haven't got them in front of me. Right, permission has not been granted for that one. I haven't got the minutes. No, we're not part of the picture. Okay, we're going to move on to item 6, which is 20/505877 outline, Brogdale Farm. If I can ask the planning officer to provide a summary and update on this application, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. This application is for outline planning permission for a mixed-use development at Brogdale Farm. There are no updates to provide since the report was published.
Thank you.
Brogdale, do you want to continue with the presentation?
Yeah, go on.
Brogdale Farm is located to the east of Brogdale Road and south of the M2 motorway, and is approximately 1.5 kilometres southwest of Faversham Railway Station. Brogdale Farm covers an area of approximately 160 acres. However, the site boundary only encompasses the far northern part of the property. The site is located within an area of high landscape value and is identified as Grade 2 agricultural land. The site adjoins a Grade 2 listed building, Brogdale Farmhouse, but does not contain any listed buildings and is not within or adjoining a conservation area. The site is also not located within a built-up area boundary or an important countryside gap. The site boundary contains the complex of farm buildings and agricultural land, a disused reservoir, demonstration garden area, glass houses and polytunnel structures, existing central farmstead hub, and the main access to the property. Access to the orchards is through the main farm complex. Whilst the site is located outside of the built-up area boundary, Brogdale Farm contains an established hub of commercial activity related to the National Fruit Collection's agricultural activity and tourism facilities, as well as the small businesses, shops, cafe, and community and commercial functions currently operating at the farm. This is a photo of the disused reservoir on site. This photo shows the greenhouses within the former plant centre. This photo shows the car park between the garden centre, which is to the left, and existing farming sheds and brewery, which is to the right. This photo shows the vegetation screen adjoining the former garden centre with orchards beyond. This photo shows the courtyard area with commercial uses fronting onto it. The adjoining listed building can be seen peeking over the top of the courtyard building on the left. This photo shows the view of the listed building from the reservoir. The application seeks to obtain outline planning permission for a mixed-use development comprising of up to 1,710 square metres of flexible workshop, industrial and research and development floor space, up to 360 square metres of nursery floor space, and up to 5 holiday lets. All matters are reserved with the exception of the proposed new access from Brogdale Road. This slide shows the indicative layout of the proposal, with 6 blocks of workshop units located towards the north of the site and holiday lets and nursery uses towards the southeast corner of the site. The existing commercial building would be retained, and the proposal would not remove any existing orchards or land currently in operational use for agricultural purposes. The proposed flexible workshop units range in size from approximately 85 square metres to 125 square metres and would be of varying size and layout. The details indicate the buildings could be designed to reflect the traditional built form of Kentish barns. The proposed nursery would be catering for babies, pre-nursery and nursery ages, and would include separate rooms and play areas for each age group. It would include outdoor play space with a covered play area. The indicative details show that the proposed nursery would be contained within a single-storey building of modern design. The proposal also includes 5 holiday let units, which were introduced during the application following discussions with the Council's tourism officer. The units have been indicatively shown to be split across 2 separate single-storey buildings, each unit with its own patio area. This plan illustrates the new access proposed from Brogdale Road. These photos show the location of the proposed new access and visibility up the road towards the bridge. The access would run through the site to connect to the existing vehicular access and parking area to the south. Vehicular parking is proposed alongside new access route and in front of the proposed workshop units. Pedestrian access is also provided separate from the vehicular access, which also runs through the site. The area is not covered by buildings and hard standing are proposed to be treated with soft landscaping to maximise green space and tree planting. Existing trees are being retained where possible, with larger tree removal only at the new vehicle entrance. The tree belt separating the existing orchards and demonstration garden are also being retained. This slide shows a visualisation of the proposal from the west, and this shows a visualisation of the proposal from the south. Officers consider that the proposals are on balance acceptable and compliant with MPPF guidance and local plan policies. It is therefore recommended that the outline planning permission be approved as set out in the officer report.
Thank you. Can I ask Grace Clements, speak as the agent, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Indeed, yes, thank you.
Great. Good evening, councillors. Thank you firstly for the opportunity to speak in support of this application on behalf of the applicant, the East Malling Trust. So I've personally been involved in the application since 2020 when the application was first submitted 4 years ago this December. In this time, we've worked with 7 case officers who we have individually satisfied on a range of planning and technical matters. We are pleased that officers are supportive of the proposal for the reasons justified in the comprehensive report before you this evening. The applicant, the East Malling Trust, are a charity that champions the advancement of science in horticulture and agriculture for public benefits, primarily through the support of research and development, conservation and education. The fruit collections themselves are owned by DEFRA and are part of an international programme to protect plant genetic resources for the future. The University of Reading is responsible for the curation of the collection. However, the visitors, public access and charitable activities require ongoing support to the home of this nationally important collection, and the East Malling Trust, the applicant, is now responsible for delivering this support. This proposal therefore forms a key part of the Trust's long-term vision for Brogdale Farm by creating a unique mix of business, tourism and community uses which complement and support Brogdale's role as an important educational and tourist attraction. The mixed uses will be highly accessible to the core square at Brogdale, and the development area is sited within the most visually contained part of the site, where there's previously largely covered by concrete, as you could see from the photos, lined reservoir and glass houses. As well as generating jobs and increasing employment floor space for the district, the proposal will specifically support and diversify the existing services of Brogdale. In turn, this will support the Trust's long-term commercial viability in the absence of public funding streams. There are also social benefits from the proposed community floor space in the form of the nursery. Environmentally, the buildings will achieve at least a very good BREEAM rating for sustainability and will also deliver biodiversity enhancements. It's considered these clear overarching benefits outweigh any limited harm in this case. The approval of the outline application would provide the Trust with more certainty to engage with potential tenants and attract specific operators, and this will influence the individual design requirements and create a bespoke design of the proposals going forward. They will undergo further refinement to ensure that the urban design, conservation and sustainability principles are fully integrated into the reserve matters. The East Malling Trust are committed to preserving and enhancing the unique heritage of Brogdale Farm, its collection.
Thank you. That is your 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Andrew Keel, please? There's a large button, you push that and you'll get 3 minutes.
Good evening. As you will have heard from the applicant's agent, this application has been pending for 4 years and it's not at all straightforward. There are 224 documents on the planning portal, some of considerable length and complexity and spanning the 4 years, and a 53-page report by the planning officer. The fact that the planning officer has taken 53 pages to present his report to you, I think is a fair indication of the complexity of the application. And his conclusion in section 17 of the report is that on balance only, he recommends approval, and you, of course, have to undertake your own balancing exercise. The Parish Council has been consistently opposed to this application throughout the consultation process. Our concerns are summarised in section 4.4 of the report, and I hope that you've been able to see the full responses we've made, which are set out amongst the portal documents. I can't do anything other than give you a few details this evening, but I can say that our concerns include: we believe it's in the wrong location, being outside the built-up settlement boundaries and therefore in breach of policy ST3. It underestimates the traffic impacts on the local and rural road network in our parish and beyond. The traffic data fails, in our view, to take full account of recent and potential increases in local and rural traffic movements. We also have concern about the reliability of the data on traffic speeds, section 710.7 of the report. We have our own Speedwatch data taken from over 25 hours of observation over 2 years, showing more traffic and going faster than the figures in or referred to in the report, which will be relevant to the traffic impact of the development, as well as the safety of the proposed access onto Brogdale Road, which is heavily used. We do not think that the demand and requirement for industrial employment space is as described, and would evidence that there's a 5 hectare site still advertised for sale on the Perry Court development nearby. We do not think that the impact of granting permission on the National Fruit Collection is as described, and last but not least, we believe the impact of the development on the listed building Brogdale Farmhouse is undervalued in the planning balance. Your balancing exercise on this application, which I mentioned, is complex, especially given the amount of documentation and the numerous policy issues. The Parish Council's request this evening is that you defer a final decision in order to have a site meeting to assist you to gauge traffic issues, likely impact and other matters. It would also give you a little time to deep dive on the planning portal's 224 documents before you make the balanced decision you're required to make on this significant application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And can I ask Julian Harrington to speak, please?
Chairman, councillors, officers and members of the public. I speak to object not because I do not wish Brogdale Farm every success, as do my neighbours, but because there is a complete disregard for the neighbours by the way of lack of consultation and indeed disregard for the historic amenity of the setting. This is an agricultural in nature and which we have enjoyed for many years. Also, there is a complete lack of consideration for the second of grade 2 listed Brogdale farmhouse, now privately owned, which setting has been majorly degraded over the years, particularly at Russia, over the years. I found as well that the traffic, and the point made by Andrew Keel is well made, and the pedestrian access assessment, particularly at Russia, does not reflect the high degree of danger. I frequently cycle this route, and at these hours, and so speak from experience. I've had to jump off my bike on one occasion. Also, I think this would I would support Andrew by saying that you might like to consider a site visit. The school will have to be accessed on a single footpath, and then they will have to cross the road. It's going to be very busy, and the 30-mile-an-hour limit is not adhered to, as the Speedwatch survey Andrew has referred to points out. To be quite honest, the buildings at industrial, there really isn't a need. There are other sites which are more accessible, and the education centre is also built on Greenfield. I know this has been passed, but to be quite honest, I just want to throw an idea out there that why would this not be where the nursery school would be? There isn't a need for the nursery school. Laurendon have said they don't need it. So is there really a need for people to be coming up on this dangerous road and for a nursery of these sorts, of this school of this nature? The Brogdale, the East Malling Trust has I'm going to run out of time, has a duty to look after its Grade 1 listed building, which is its headquarters, 30 miles away in East Malling. I don't think they should be allowed to do this, and by profiteering with industrial units and an unsuitable application for the area, and it's just blighting our amenity and lives. I would ask for the long-term plan to be forthcoming before you decide on this application.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move the officer's recommendation. I'll seconder. Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Anybody wish to speak of this? Councillor Hunt.
I think this is actually a good proposal. Everything that we've got here with holiday lets, the workshops and the nursery is exactly what we need in the borough. And this does seem to be a good location. I understand the concerns over highways and the request for us to go and look at a site visit, but KCC Highways have not made any objection, and on highways grounds we say probably every single meeting it comes up. We won't have a leg to stand on, even if we go and look at that and agree with the concerns. Unless KCC say there's a problem, there's not a lot we can do. The concern I have got, though, is that it is a balancing act with this one, and there is obvious benefits, but there is also obvious negative impacts with it being outside the built-up boundary and the heritage. And I think the heritage is well covered in the report, and it's obviously been looked at through the stages of the application. And it does come up as moderate, less than substantial harm. But the question is, without having an operator for the education offering, what impact does that have on the balance? And if this was coming forward without the education, would that push the balance in favour of it being refused? And that's the concern that I've got. If this was coming forward with no education, would it be a different recommendation? And without that definite operator, I am concerned that we definitely need the education in the borough. But what I don't want to see is this getting approval and then it coming back to say, well, we haven't got anyone to take that up. So we asked for planning permission to remove that. And then we're left with something that would have been refused in the first place. So I wonder if officers just give a confirmation of where we would stand if that was the case to come forward, and if it was, how much weight does this education offering give?
Have officer comment on that, please.
Of course. It's a good question. But the recommendation was made on the basis that Lorendon, the current situation where Lorendon had withdrawn their interest, and there currently isn't, there's not a identified operator on board. Although I did question this with the applicant if they wanted to keep that as part of the proposal, and they said they had considered that as well and had been canvassing other schools. There was interest in the space, but didn't have an operator to put down on paper.
Councillor Hunt, come back.
Thanks, Chair. Is there a way that we could ensure that if it doesn't come forward with an educational establishment, it's almost, I know it's difficult to condition that it has to be done with this, but it's just the concern is just there. If something doesn't happen and we end up with the rest of it and not that, we need to make sure that comes forward and it all comes forward or nothing.
Would that be reasonable to put a condition in that commencement on the rest of the development couldn't be started until an educational provider was found?
Yeah, we think we could actually condition that there could be some sort of a requirement to get confirmation that they have an operator for the nursery prior to commencement. We would have to consider some wording, but I think the recommendation allows us to work with that wording.
Are we agreed that would be if we're going to give permission, that's something we would want to include?
Yeah, I'm happy to propose that we delegate to officers wording to ensure that concern that's been raised is dealt with.
Okay, all agreed? Yep. Okay, I have Councillor Noe next.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a question about the holiday lets. There's currently some tourist accommodation. I'm assuming that's very short term. The holiday lets, are we talking about very short term accommodation, or are we looking at something like a 10-month license?
Do we have that detail?
The details are fairly light on this part. My understanding was that it would just be standard short-term accommodation, holiday accommodation rather than a longer term, sort of month-long lease. But
We could specify a period, no more than 2 weeks or a month.
you know, we could try and get some clarity on this through the reserved matters. Maybe we could condition that there is additional information provided as part of the reserved matters to clarify the management of that.
Because that would certainly change things if we were looking at a slightly more permanent letting.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think there's any intention of it being permanent. And sorry, Chair,
Slightly more
answered the question
permanent.
directly, but
Yeah.
we do have a condition already imposed to prevent it from being used as permanent residence. If that's the concern, that could be leading towards that.
But a 10-month.
Councillor Noe, please go through the chair. Please go through the chair. You don't go have
Oh,
conversations.
sorry. Yeah, no, it's, I'm thinking more of somebody with a 10-month license who would be there and then be coming back the next year and then be coming back the next year. That is quite a bit different than, let's say, a 2-week let.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Stoddart? Officer
You've
Stoddart.
upgraded me. Condition 40 does specify that the residence shall not be occupied by any person or a group of persons for more than 4 weeks. So that's the period that they've got for occupation.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Carly. Okay, Councillor Winkles.
Thank you, Chair. Can the officer show us this proposed development in relation to where the listed building is exactly to this proposed development site, please?
Do you have a good view of that?
Sorry, Chair, was it a plan or a photo?
Well, if you've got a
Photo.
diagram, if you can show us where the listed building is on that one to start with, that would be good.
No problem. I'm just going to zoom in. So this building here is the listed building.
Well,
Right.
I'm just sorry. I thought my mouse would show. So on this plan, I'm just going to center on that listed building a bit. There's a brown building in the middle of a white background property that says existing property. I'm actually going to zoom right in on it just to make that completely clear. That brown building in the white background, that's the listed building. And I'll just zoom out just so you can get an idea of how that sits in the context of the proposed development. I also have those photos that I showed before. I can go back to those.
if you could go back and show those photos again, that would be good.
I've gone to past.
They are quite ugly buildings, aren't they?
So this is one photo of the listed building. To be honest, there's not great visibility of the listed building from the site.
The building is the one on the right.
It's the one on the. It's the one on the left.
One on the left.
You can see the white chimney and the brown roof, tiled roof over the top of that black smaller building. And then there's another photo taken from the reservoir. And that shows because that property is screened with quite dense vegetation, possibly because of the different ownership to protect their amenity over the years. So as you can see, there's no visibility of that listed building from the reservoir.
Thanks for
Okay.
just one.
Councillor Winkles.
By the chair again. One other point is that scrubland there, which I call scrubland there, that is actually where the proposed development's going to be on that particular scrubland.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. I can show you exactly where that is on a plan form. So that photo was taken, sorry, one moment. That photo was taken at the very bottom corner of that existing reservoir, looking back towards the listed building. The other photo was taken further south where it says courtyard.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Thompson.
For me, again, it's a proposal that is outside the built-up area. One of the key points for me is agricultural use. We're seeing so many times, I hit this problem myself, that agricultural buildings and the surroundings around them, even though they're not the land themselves, have intrinsic value for agricultural use. And so many of them are disappearing and not being made available at an affordable price. So I'd like to know, were these ever offered for rent, the glass house area or anything like that beforehand? Because I noticed here in the report it says that the development proposals, let me try and find it. But basically they hadn't looked at any other commercial spaces before putting it on this particular site. So,
and I think there's also a requirement to prove there's no alternative agricultural land available. So if you could just address those two.
So just going to clarify first. The first question was, has there been any marketing evidence? No, there was no marketing evidence provided. And the other one was, is there alternative sites found? And the answer to that is no.
Councillor Thompson?
So with that in mind, I know of people who are looking for sites for nursery and intensive agriculture. I think that's what it should be. That's what it was. That's what we know it as, because it's a Brogdale Research Centre. Okay, the reservoir is not used anymore, but that would be a great biodiversity site. The nursery hasn't now shown a need, as in the children's nursery rather than plant nursery. We're then offering commercial use of a site which is intrinsically agricultural, even though it has a research element. I think obviously we want to support what they do as a charity, but they should also be looking at that themselves, researching and supporting agriculture. So for me, it doesn't offer support to agriculture. It's an industrialisation of an agricultural site. Then going to buy-to-let scenario, we're short of social housing. In the agricultural sector and in rural areas, we're short of small housing. And again, you know, it goes to privileged people who are going to stay in holiday lets, not actually on the opposite, where people are worried about becoming permanent residency. I'd like to see, if something's put forward in agriculture, that there's support for people to work. Currently, there isn't that rurally. You have to live in a mobile home. So for me, the site doesn't offer any of the correct things in an agricultural area, surrounded by orchards in a very valued agricultural setting. So that's my view on that. Oh, sorry. I just wondered, I think a lot of people haven't understood necessarily the site and its value, so I'd have to agree with the guys. It might be worth a visit to understand all the glass houses, understand the buildings that are at the footing there, and understand all the orchards surrounding it as well.
Okay, there are a number of issues that we do need to clear up. So if you're proposing a site visit, I'll second that. Would anybody like to talk to a site visit? Councillor Winklis?
I wasn't actually going to propose a site visit, actually, first of all, but listening to the further debate, as you say, no, I'm a great believer in site visits if a member calls one. So I will be basically supporting a site visit on those grounds.
It may also be useful to get the context of the listed building and some of the other points that have been raised. So I think there could be value in a site visit. Councillor Marchington, as one of the few people who comes to our site visits.
Yeah, I've been to the last one. No, sorry. Just a quick point. I'm for the issue at the moment and the proposal, but it's the issues about whether or not something's going to become industrial and should it be kept another way. You're going to use a redundant reservoir. This county is desperately short of stored fresh water, and they're proposing a lot on the marshes to the north of Faversham. There's coming a serious amount of money to be spent creating sort of fresh water, so it can be bumped back onto the land during the summer because we're getting drier and drier and fast as well. So it's not so much a redundant reservoir, it's one that could be put back into use and show its effect as part of the education system there now as well. And so I'm for the site visit because I'd like to see what condition that's in. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think I'm also a bit concerned about the role of a nursery in this development. So those in favour of a site visit, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Abstentions? Well, it's down to me then, isn't it? As the proposer or seconder, I'm going to say yes. I think a site visit would be beneficial, so we'll have a site visit. Sorry, chaps. We'll move on to the next one, which is 23/505-678 Full. Land west of Warden Road, East Church. If we can have an update and summary from the officer, please.
Okay, no updates on this item except the tabled update that's been provided, Chair.
Okay, this came through, as I understand it, today, or certainly within the last 24 hours from the applicants, is that correct?
That's correct, yes, Chair.
Which I think is pretty poor. I don't know if you've all had time to read it. If anybody would like 5 minutes to read it, please indicate. Okay then, we'll carry on. Simon.
Thank you, Chair. The approximately 1.14 hectare site is an undeveloped parcel of land which is currently used for the grazing of horses. This is an aerial photograph that you can see here. The site is bounded by agricultural land to the north, west and south, and by residential development on the opposite side of Warden Road to the east. This is a photograph of the site from Warden Road facing north. This is a photograph of the site looking northeast. And here we have a photograph of the site looking northwest. Planning permission is sought for the erection of 32 affordable rented residential dwellings. The unit mix will comprise 6 one-bedroom flats, 3 two-bedroom flats within the flatted block that you can see on the eastern side of the site there. 8 two-bedroom houses and 15 three-bedroom houses. The proposed materials are showed on this slide here, 3 different colours of weatherboarding and 3 different shades of brick, a red, a buff and a cream light multi-brick. Various house types are proposed. This is the Goldcrest Type A house type. This is the Goldcrest Type B. Here we have the Kite detached house type. Here we have the Bettany Type A semi-detached house and the Bettany Type B. This is the Osprey detached house type. Here we have the Osprey 2 detached house type. This is the flatted block. These are the front and the rear elevation, east and west elevations. And here we have the north and south side elevations. This is an illustrative image of the proposed development. It's recommended that planning permission be granted subject to a Section 106 agreement and conditions as set out in the officer report. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd say those grey ones looked a bit grim, but anyway. Julian Moat, please. If you push the large button, you'll get 3 minutes from when you're ready to start.
Good evening, Chairman and members. My name is Julia Moat, Planning Director for Chartway Partnerships Group, and I speak as joint applicant with our registered provider, Moat Homes, for the scheme before you this evening. We have worked closely with council officers and statutory consultees throughout the pre- and planning application process to develop a high-quality, fully affordable rented housing scheme to meet pressing local housing needs in Eastchurch. The scheme will deliver 32 much-needed new homes, all provided as locally affordable rented 10-year dwellings set within walking distance of the services and facilities in Eastchurch Village. The development has been designed sympathetically to reflect local village vernacular, incorporating public open space and native landscaping, all aimed at linking the homes sensitively within the existing village community. Our proposals will make a significant contribution in meeting the council's and specifically the Isle of Sheppey's immediate affordable housing needs, as recognised by the council's housing officer in their consultation response at a time when the council has declared a borough-wide affordable housing emergency. Crucially, the delivery of 32 affordable rented homes for Moat, a local reputable registered provider, will bring forward genuinely affordable rented homes in an area where there is no planning policy requirement for affordable housing delivery. Moat have ring-fenced £2.6 million of recycled capital grant funding, money that will be used to bring forward this much-needed scheme. In addition, the council's housing service will receive nomination rights, meaning that these homes will be provided for local people in local housing need. As a team, we have worked closely with the council's officers during the processing of our application, amending the scheme to take account of consultee and local comments relating to the layout, design and quantum of development. The overall number of homes has been reduced and a more organic layout developed, strengthening the provision of additional landscaping. Our development will unlock in excess of £213,000 in Section 106 contributions. This money will be allocated to the enhancement of local education facilities, special educational needs, medical and social care provision, and the upgrading of local sports facilities. The proposals have been designed to exceed current sustainability requirements through the inclusion of air source heat pumps, EV charging facilities and sustainable urban drainage, all aimed at maximising energy efficiency and minimising future home energy bills for affordable rented occupants. In summary, the scheme will materially contribute to the delivery of much-needed affordable rented homes on the Isle of Sheppey, where there has been a historic lack of affordable housing delivery. Full consideration of the scheme proposals is set out in the officer report, and we encourage members to concur with the recommendation and grant planning permission for the proposal. Thank you for your time.
Perfectly timed, thank you. Can I ask Councillor Carter to speak, please?
Eastchurch Parish Council strongly objects to for the following reasons. Please can I remind members that the nearby site's 2.2 outline planning permission was refused in May 2023 for the development of up to 63 dwellings and all necessary supporting infrastructure. The key ground for refusal related to encroachment and development and presence of built form and urbanisation in the open countryside, which would be detrimental to the character and appearance of the locality and to the setting of Eastchurch. The aesthetic design, which includes a block of flats, is wholly unappealing, dark and drab, and the long-term appearance of rented properties will soon fall out of character with the area. What is the long-term plan for care and maintenance of this estate? Pedestrian safety. High likelihood of vehicle and pedestrian conflict. The pavements in Warden Road itself are particularly narrow and only exist on one side of the road, with extremely tight pinch points near the church. There is no safe path beyond Warden Road into Plough Road. The paving on Warden Road is not adequate to enable the population of the estate to walk anywhere without being a danger to themselves or car drivers. The proposed entrance to the site will introduce a junction that pulls out onto the bend of Warden Road, in which the speeds down the hill can regularly exceed 60 miles an hour. There is a high risk of a collision and thus a danger to life. The audit was carried out and conducted at the quietest time of day and was not representative of the morning commute, school run or holiday traffic. The development will bring significant light pollution to the currently dark and starlit rural landscape at night. The drains in Warden Road are currently full to the brim with mud. Any additional water runoff from the land opposite or from the driveway exiting the site will flood out onto the Warden Road and overwhelm the already struggling drainage system. The Parish Council have already applied for an I-case due to the lack of services on the drainage. There is not the appropriate infrastructure to cope with these proposed houses and an increase in the village population. The public transport is not adequate for this development at the eastern end of the island. To induce additional homes will place a further burden on the already creaking health and emergency services. It is a peaceful, unique village setting that makes Eastchurch special, and the green fields that surround this village should be preserved for all to enjoy. To build here would not be in the best interests of the village. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Braun. One question before we start the debate. 2.2 refers to a nearby site with outline planning permission, that's currently at appeal, sorry. Is there on a map to show the location of this site and the appeal site? Lovely. Okay. Whilst we're looking, has there anybody got anything to say? Councillor Noy. Noe.
Thank you, Chairman. 32 affordable houses would certainly be welcome. However, I do have concerns over the site where the entrance is. Now, I do know this area well, and I'm very concerned about the visibility. If you look at the plans for this, the entrance is surrounded by trees along Warden Road. Now, that entire area there is a hill. I've looked it up. It's got a 7-meter elevation. So coming from Eastchurch, that's a 7-meter drop, and so the other way. On the other side of it, not shown in that picture, right where that is a bend, which means there is a visibility issue here. Now, I know in 2021 there was a very serious accident right at that location. Not only that, but just at the bottom there, a little ways down, is the junction between Warden Road and the High Street in Eastchurch. Now, that is currently a hotspot for accidents. I am very concerned that the addition of 32 houses worth of traffic is going to make that situation worse, especially considering that there is a school on the other side of the street, just also below where that picture is. I would really recommend a site visit on this one. If you'd have to see it for yourselves, the visibility isn't that good, and I really am worried about how that's designed. Thank you.
You voted against the last site visit, didn't you? Just saying. It's all right. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to raise this in January because I wasn't expecting to be here. And that is on page 115. And it has been raised a number of times in this committee and elsewhere, and that is that the government over the years have said, well, you should get mitigation for your residents for development. and I have complained bitterly that members have not got mitigation for their residents. So when I see the Swale District, I think, well, why can't we put the Isle of Sheppey? You know that there was the issue of academies, which colleagues actually came round and said, but the Sittingbourne academies get the money, so why can't the Sheppey academies get the money? So my point is that going forward, and indeed on this, that where we have 106s, and it may be that, as I've suggested in the past, the chair and spokespeople can agree, but monies should be put towards facilities within the area. And if there is development on the Isle of Sheppey, then the Isle of Sheppey is the area and not Swale. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any progress with the map? Thanks. Over to you.
Okay. So here you can see the site, which is to the north of the roundabout where Lower Road meets East Church High Street. And this is the site here, if you can see my cursor.
This is the site under discussion, yeah?
This is the application site, and then this is the site here, which is the subject of the appeal presently.
Do you think this site getting permission would have an impact on the appeal? It does look a very different prospect, but...
I mean, it's a difficult question, really. I mean, each case should be considered on its merits.
Carly?
It's currently with the inspector, so it's gone through all of the process other than for the inspector to write it up and make the decision. So I don't think the decision tonight would affect that one. But as you say, it is a different site. It's a different set of scenario, different set of circumstances. So members should just look at them individually, I think.
Okay, and another thing that just strikes me is if we're going to give land up for housing, and it is land, and it is affordable housing, what was the purpose in reducing the number? Because you would hope to
It was to improve the character of the development and to provide the opportunity for more landscape screening and less hard standing on the site to better integrate it with the established character of the locality.
Fair enough. Councillor Kavanagh?
Thank you, Chair. Google Maps is my friend with these. I mean, I can see there are already houses on the east side of Warden Road. So although this is outside the built-up area, the other side of the road already has housing. I appreciate it's not ideal, but we desperately need social housing, and I assume your reference to affordable housing is social rented housing. And the last thing, what Councillor Harrison said, as someone who's been involved in moving children from Sheerness to Sittingbourne schools, we need to get away from that. Why is it that there's a contribution to a secondary school in Sittingbourne when we need to have children educated locally, not spending hours each day on buses to-ing and throwing? Thank you.
This is a standing ache. Why? I thought this 106 money was supposed to be to ameliorate, or if that's the right word, the impact. So how does giving money to a school in Sittingbourne mitigate the impact? Yeah, Joanne, if you want.
Thank you. Yeah, members have raised this on past occasions, and we've been in dialogue with KCC around this. So generically, there's a two-pronged answer. One is KCC work to a commissioning plan for education. So KCC map out for 5 to 10 years ahead where they believe school places will be required. That then sets which schools they see as expanding, and that is the document that they work to. The second element is schools, academy schools, need to be willing to accept the funding and to expand. And I'm not saying anything about this particular application, but generically, KCC have to have an academy's permission to accommodate extra children, and that is part of the process that they go through.
Simon, did you want to add anything?
I think Johanna's covered that there. Thank you.
Okay, so that's the less than satisfactory answer from KCC. Councillor Thompson, I've got your initials down. Is that for this one? Yep.
Just again, it's a rural site. I applaud the fact that it's going to be affordable and rented affordable. What I'd like to go back to is the fact that to get to passive house standard per home is only an extra £3,000. So for the people that are within those units, that would be, really rewarding to them as well as the builder. So I'm wondering, again, a bit of better orientation, better thought on the design prospect. And I feel that the 3 or 4 story block of flats is a bit incongruous to a field next door. It seems a bit over the top. And are there any fully accessible bungalows within the design? I didn't spot any.
Simon?
The flats will sit behind some quite extensive landscape screening, so that they wouldn't be unduly visible from the public realm. Just bear with me a second. There are a number of the units are being provided to M42 of building regulation standards, which makes them accessible, adaptable for disabled occupants. Just checking the numbers that are built to M43 standards. Just bear with me a second. 732, yeah, thanks. So 12 dwellings will be built to M42 standards so that they can be adapted for disabled occupants. None will be built to M43 standards, so they can be adapted but in future, but at this stage they wouldn't be built to accommodate wheelchair users.
Councillor Thompson, do you want to come back?
Yeah, possible. Yeah, just that I've currently got people waiting, and the waiting list is now 2 years, and one of the problems seems to be that they're adaptable properties, but not actually properties that can be used. So this seems to exacerbate the problem again. I just wondered if we can put in a condition that there are some that are small, don't want to be big, that's the key, 2 bedroom, 1 bedroom, but fully accessible.
Is that something we can look at?
There may be design implications, so I couldn't really say that we could necessarily adapt, put a condition on requiring them to be built to M43, to be fully wheelchair accessible. I mean, M42 allows them to be adapted to accommodate some, additional needs in terms of accessibility. But I mean, I think I'd need to go back to the applicant before we could say that we could impose a condition requiring them to be built to M43 fully wheelchair accessible standard.
Well, we could condition it, but then they could appeal it. Okay, we have had a request for, I'm getting 4 people now to speak. We have had a request for a site visit. So I'm going to second that so we can discuss that. So would anyone not speak to a site visit? We've had Councillor Thompson, yep.
I'd be interested in a site visit just purely because of the aspect of the height of the block of flats. It just seems, as I said, to me, quite incongruous looking at a Google Street View. And it'd be quite nice to know what the walk is, as Councillor Noe said, the access and then down to the high street. I'd quite like to know that. So.
Okay. Councillor Marchington on a site visit?
Yes, because my point was going to be about this particular site. I regularly contract with companies down Plough Lane. and I have to come in for East Church because I'm bringing trucks and cranes down there, you know, or even even telehandlers and that, you know. But as you go into Plough Lane from the Walden Road, which is just to the north of the pitch you were showing, it's a very nasty pinch point, and right up through the entire area, it's very narrow. You have to pull up and wait for people to come past. You've got to be totally stationary and let them scrape their way past the undergrowth next to you every time, you know. I've had a couple of touches that weren't my fault, where they've come past and clouted the vehicle to damage themselves, and I drive on after, you know. We get horses down there. There's always horses down there, and they're often in little groups, and I really have to tuck up tight so that the horses go past single file, and that's when you're worse, because you really I've tried to back up into places before, but you just sit there, and so there's often things like this. What you don't see down there, very rarely, is children or bikes or scooters. You don't see them, and that would be a nightmare addition down there. Really would be a nightmare addition. It's a dangerous little road. And the passing points down there, they're vehicle made, not by KCC. They're just places where people have gone into the bank so many times, people use it as a passing point. And as you go, so that's the point. So I was going to mention it. So a site visit is a good idea from my point.
Okay. Any more on the site visit? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour of a site visit, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against. 4, 5. Abstentions. Looks like another site visit. Before I announce that, are there any other items that members would like to be considered before it comes back? We've already had the proposal from Councillor Thompson about upping the environmental standards, which we'll discuss. Councillor Harrison?
I don't know. But some years ago, when a planning application was agreed for Newington, our housing people worked very closely with the Housing Association on adapting a property for somebody who was disabled, who would be very, very near the top of the list, if not the top, to make sure that it was as needed. I have spoken to the local council about this many times. It was almost purpose built, as opposed to, we'll do it just in case. And that meant that person who had been waiting for, or that family that had been waiting for quite extreme adaptations, they were finally there. But you couldn't expect, it's almost double the price of a normal house. You couldn't expect, well, let's do half a dozen just in case those people are at the top of the list. And besides which, if you're in Faversham, you may not want to live, in this case, in Eastchurch, Warden, Laysdown area. So, but I don't know if that's still what they do. I know that it was one of the things, and as the person who spoke earlier, the Housing Association appeared to have been working very closely with our housing staff. So that could be one of the things that they're already working on. I do not know.
Okay, I think Carl has indicated that we've got that noted, so we will look into that. If there's nothing else people want to know, Councillor Noy, would you like to confirm what it was that you would like checked before the next meeting?
Yes, thank you. I would like the members of the committee to actually take a look at the location of where that site is on the road to see what the visibility is from either side. So if you're coming up from the top or coming up from the bottom, whether or not the entrance to this particular site would be visible, keeping in mind that it will be lined with trees on either side. So that is one concern. The other one is the proximity to the junction of Warden Road and the High Street. If you've never been down there before, it's worth taking a look. It is not the easiest junction to navigate because of the number, especially when the tourist season is at. So it is worth taking a look at that. There might have to be some consideration on what to do about that junction if you're going to be adding 32 houses.
Okay, thank you. Got that, Carly?
Lovely.
Okay, so we'll have a site visit and, yep, we'll move on to the next item. Hopefully make some decisions tonight. 2.3, 504274 land at Sittingbourne Mill. Can we have a update and summary from the officer, please?
Thank you, Chair. There's no updates on this item. So this application is at land at Sittingbourne Mill. This slide shows the the proposed site. The proposal is for 187 units set over 4 blocks, along with some commercial floor space, community floor space, and landscaping and public realm works. The application site sits within the central Sittingbourne regeneration area, and for context you have the retail park just to the south of the site, and you can see the creek to the north of the site. It's accessed from the wall, and to the north of the site runs a pedestrian and cycle route with vehicular access along the southern boundary of the site, and that provides the access and servicing for the residential and commercial units. I'm just going to run through some elevations of the 4 blocks proposed. So this is block A. I'm sorry, my screen is tiny on here. So block A is at the most southern end of the site. It sits adjacent to the existing skate park, which is already on the site, and it will be retained as part of the proposal. And there's a CGI there, which just shows you, you can see the skate park there just to the left-hand side of the frontage of the building. This is block B. It consists of 10 houses with parking on the ground floor underneath. All the units have ground floor parking with residential units above. And this CGI just shows you the houses tucked in behind the Barge Museum, which is also existing on the site and shown to be retained as well. This is the elevation of block C. This also sits at an angle to the creek. And this is the elevation if you have your back to the creek, your back to the water. This CGI shows the rear of block C, and you can just see where it abuts up to the next one. So this is if you have your back to the retail park. The water is on the other side of that, and you can just see the servicing there at the rear of the site at the ground floor level. Finally, this is block D. This is the tallest site on the block on the site. I've put 2 elevations up there. The first one on the left shows the elevation from the creek if you have your back to the water, and you can see underneath block D we have the commercial floor space directly underneath, and the commercial space just to the right. The second elevation shows if you're looking through the site towards it, it does step down towards the boundary, and that would be the lower part is at the boundary with the retail park. There's the CGI showing block D, which is sort of closest to you, and you can just see the blocks sort of changing in height as they move along the creek side. There's a couple of illustrations here of the entire site to give you an idea of how it ties together. This one shows you across the creek, so you can see the public realm in front of the buildings, and that's the pedestrian and cycle access along that frontage. And then this illustration is from the retail park over the development towards the water as such. And again, that's where the vehicular access runs across the back of that site. There's a couple of pictures here just to show you what's going on at the moment. That's of the Barge Museum, sort of standing with your back kind of to the wall, looking towards the site. So the water is on your left-hand side. And this is a panoramic view. So the skate park is over to the right, the Barge Museum to the left, and then the retail park is kind of behind, in front of you, behind that scrub. The site's mainly laid to hard standing, as you can see from this photograph. And that's the end. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. Bellinger, please? The large button and you'll get a 30-second warning.
Good evening, Chair, members. I'm Martin Bellinger. I'm a partner at Essential Land. Essential Land has had a long association with Sittingbourne, which we're proud of, spanning from the time we acquired the former mill site back in May 2011 to the present day. The application site has been derelict, unused land for decades now. It was formerly the effluent plant for the mill, and obviously it takes some vision and design skill to combine new homes, commercial and community uses in this location that would respond positively to the history and character of Sittingbourne. And we've worked with award-winning architects, Darling Associates, to bring these proposals forward. We've worked with the council and we've always been mindful of their aspirations for a new community and neighbourhood at this location, and we've taken particular care to directly address the town centre and Milton Creek supplementary planning documents. And your officers have been closely involved with the design from the outset in a collaborative approach. We're pleased that they've concluded that we've created an attractive and successful solution which will enliven the creek. We're also happy that following the detailed discussions with statutory consultees, over a period exceeding 2 years, there's no objections subject to the application of certain conditions, and I'll emphasise that we support those conditions. Apart from creating an aspirational scheme, we've been very mindful of the fantastic community assets in this location. That's always been part of the attraction of this site. Its synergy with the Barge Museum, the Sittingbourne and Kelmsley Light Railway and the skate park. Essential Land has played its own part in the creation of these assets. We donated the land on which the light railway sits, as well as offering the land for the station building at a significant discount. We conveyed the land to the council for nominal sums to enable the creation of the Barge Museum and the skate park, which are assets that now enjoy considerable use. We're confident that the transformed site will attract new visitors to all of these important assets. The regeneration of the site is not just about much needed homes, it's about providing dramatically improved and inviting public open spaces, landscaping, a new area of ecological advancement, street furniture, pocket parks, green roof, and a dedicated pedestrian and cycle access all feature in the scheme. And we have designed a scheme that's sustainable. We're targeting a 2/3 reduction in carbon emissions against the current building regulations. We've shared the financial constraints we face bringing forward the proposal with the council's experts, and we've sought to demonstrate the economic benefits that it'll bring to Sittingbourne in job creation and consumer spending power.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I ask Mr. Sherlock to speak, please? The mic is already on, so just start speaking when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I am Darren Sherlock, a director of Sittingbourne Retail Park. We support a development of this nature and are here to help, but it must not be at the detriment of the retail park. There are fundamental issues with this application which have not been addressed despite numerous written objections. So we object to this application in its current form for the following reasons. The main concern is one of access to and from the site. The red line boundary fails to show how it will connect to the public highway and stops short of the site by 90 metres, so the scheme is relying on us to provide admittance through a gated access positioned on one of our narrowest service roads. This route and location through the estate will create a traffic conflict between ours and the applicants and begs the question about emergency access and how it complies with KCC Kent Design Guide. We have met with the applicant to encourage a more appropriate access, such as Crown Key Lane, and have even suggested that we would give a small section of our rear service road to facilitate this. However, we have heard nothing back from them. Interestingly, we know of no schemes where a residential development can only be accessed through a retail park. We respectfully ask the committee to consider compelling the applicant to seek a more appropriate access to their site rather than a busy retail park. The application provides 90 parking spaces, which started out at 60, but how does the applicant seek to control the parking given that they will not be able to covenant such a restriction on the deeds? So this scheme has a space for less than half of the residents, which will inevitably lead to overflow into our own car parks. There are proposals to connect a pedestrian route over the wall to Millway, but no consideration has been given to the dramatic change in levels that would need to take place to achieve this. In fact, the route leads up to the edge of an already condemned bridge. Both ourselves and the Light Railway have been contacted by building control over its state. A must-do planning condition to demolish would render the area safe, but a question remains unanswered about access for the disabled, etc., and this walkway's deliverability. In fact, a link of this nature from Millway to a linear park was to be delivered under a previous Section 106 as part of the regeneration scheme, but was not done on the grounds of viability. And already, a viability assessment has been submitted in this application to support 0 affordable homes. The park is one of the main attractions and is an asset that provides jobs and retail to the town. In keeping with Swale's strategy to protect retail centres, we feel that serious consideration should be given to the aspects I have mentioned. To conclude, we restate that we are supportive of a clean, unintrusive residential scheme on this site, but not with access through the retail park. We are mindful that we do not want to create a massive problem further down the line when the authorities need to step in. Officers, members, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time and listening. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I was wondering if you're going to get a seconder. Right, Councillor Winklis.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me to speak on this. I do have some grave concerns about this proposed development. I mean, it is basically a piece of land that does need regeneration, but the traffic congestion already in the area, just across the back of us here, as we know when we come to these meetings, etc., Saturday, the additional proposed development would add to traffic congestion, which is already totally gridlocked at certain times of the day. And looking at the design on the picture that was put up there, I have concerns about the height of the buildings as well. Knowing the area well, I feel that the height of the buildings, maybe certain aspects of it's well designed, but I think that could be quite a blight on basically what is looked upon as a heritage area of the town with the Barge Museum. But I'll listen to the rest of the debate before I make my mind up. Thank you.
Can I just clarify? There's been a lot of talk about this access road. No, access isn't a planning matter, I don't think. But is the site deliverable? If the retail park refused to give usage of their land to this and it's not actually public highway, is the site actually deliverable?
It's my understanding that the wall that the site is accessed from is accessible, so there wouldn't need to be permission given.
Right.
Would you like to see a clearer plan of the access? Because I do have one tucked away.
If we could, yes please.
Okay, Chair.
It might put off people asking for a site visit.
Chair, that is probably the clearest depiction of the access roads into the site. You can see to the southwest the access into the retail park, and then cars either stream off into the retail park or take that immediate first left, which then takes you up towards the skate park, which is essentially just next to that is where the access into the site is. That's probably the clearest illustration I have of the roads. I don't know if that's helpful.
Okay, thank you. Apply to everybody now. Right. Tony, I've got you. I've got you next. Yeah, you didn't want to come back.
Well, I could come back actually.
Wasn't an invitation.
Basically, I think a site meeting possibly would be an idea as far as the access road concerned and other issues as I stated just now that I've got with this. So I would propose a site meeting if you second it, or someone could second it.
Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll get some more contributions. Councillor Hunt.
First of all, the design, I think is excellent. I think a lot of thought has gone into the design, and I can see that the location of this, with what I would see as like a Wolfside development, the design and everything is good. And there has been a lot of work that has gone into that. My concern is, as everybody else, is the location. There's a lot of properties in here that have been squeezed into the site. Not enough parking. And that, I know KCC, National Highways have all looked at this and say that it's, from a safety point of view, it doesn't cause harm on highway safety. And we can never go against KCC. They look at it on a safety point of view. The reality, if anyone has been down to the retail park on a weekend, we know what the reality is. Cars queuing up, it takes forever to get out there sometimes. I've been down to the Raybell quite a lot. I know the access that's being spoken about, and you can't get lorries in there now to be delivered to the museum when it's happened. You had to move fence posts about, and that was on land that the speaker spoke about that doesn't belong to Essential, doesn't belong to the council, and does belong to the retail park. And it's had to have fencing and posts being moved to be able to get lorries in there. Now, if that's the case with Lloyd's Wharf, that is going to be the same case for Essential, and getting, for this amount of building, even the lorries to get in there with supplies to be able to do this in the first place. And I just can't see how it can be done. And unfortunately, I wouldn't agree to a site visit because I know the area and I probably couldn't make it anyway, but you do need to bottom out this access because I can't see how it can happen. And if an offer has been put to try and work with the applicant to come up with a better scenario to get in there, and they haven't even taken up and discussed it, I think if this if it does go to a site visit and there's time, we need to be speaking to all parties. It should have been done a long time before now. Everyone needs to be in the room talking, see what can be done, because there's no point approving this if there isn't going to be able to get into the site. And if we can come up with a better alternative that's going to work for everybody that's using that site, then it would be better to do that.
Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, I feel that there's too much development in one small space, and I'm very concerned about access for emergency vehicles as well, getting in there. I can't see that majority of those residents are going to be using the skate park or go to the barge museum. I think it does need development, but it needs to be brought back a bit and reduce the amount of accommodation for a start.
Okay, I've got 4 more speakers coming up now. So there has been a couple of suggestions for site visits. So I'll take that vote now. Any? Give us a chance to speak. Go on, then, Councillor Stephen. You can address it to the site visit. Right. There's been a proposal for a site visit and a seconder. So speaking to the site visit, Councillor Stephen.
Yeah, I know the site very well, as Councillor Hunt does, and the access point is the bone of contention here. And to have a site visit, yes, it might be a good idea, but I think we need to iron out now the reasons why we want that site visit and the purpose of it. We haven't done that yet because there's others that want to talk about the situation regarding not just the access, but the height of the buildings and the lease that is appertaining to the barge museum. It's going to take a lot of that land up, and that lease obviously needs to be negotiated. I know the clauses in the lease state that the council can take it over and do as they wish with it. That's fine, but there's a lot more involved in just going straight for a site visit, and I would implore you to allow the rest of us to speak before we go to that point. Then we know when we get there we're going to be talking and looking at the right things.
And that is the purpose of this section, so that people can raise why they want a site visit and what they want to see there, so that we have a useful site visit.
Okay, site visit. I would like to know how you can have a 3-metre path for the access to the Kemsley Light Railway and a road accessing the wall, and in which direction the traffic will be turning from that access. Are they going up to the retail park? Are they going to go under the bridge and to meet the road on the other side? Okay.
Lovely. Councillor Thompson? Sorry, Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you. Regarding access, I also have been down to the Raybell, and strangely enough, Councillor Stephen and I were talking about access the other day. My question is something completely different. This was called in by former Councillor Whelan. There is no affordable housing.
We are speaking to the site visit. We will come back to that.
I did put my hand up right at the beginning, Chair, and you haven't chosen to let me speak.
We're addressing a site visit. Right. Councillor Carnell, are you speaking to a site visit?
Site visit, no.
Okay. Anybody else wanting to speak to a site visit? Councillor Thompson again. I mean, Councillor Noe?
Yeah, I'd love to have a site visit because I'm a little confused by the drawings there. The azimuth of the sun would indicate it's a complete opposite of what's drawn. So therefore it makes me worried about how they've come to the conclusions of density, visual aspects, overshadowing, that sort of thing. So I'd love a site visit because I just don't know the area well enough. So,
Councillor Noe?
Thank you, Chairman. It seems to me that some of the questions raised about what the reasons why people want to go to the site visit is not something that we can answer by going there. For example, whether the retail park would even allow this, or whether the road is wide enough to allow vehicles, lorries and that, building equipment to go through. It seems to me that these are questions that could be answered without needing to go there, that somebody needs to actually look into this.
I think the point would be that if we were going to move for a deferral, we would want a site visit, as you know, as we were deferring, and we can also get the other information for when it comes back. So it's multi-pronged. Does anybody else wish to speak for a site visit? Councillor Stephen?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The access points for vehicles, large vehicles in particular, getting to a construction site need to be assessed, and the only way to do that is to physically see the actual turning points, the widths of the road, and the location of the access point.
Okay. Councillor Hunt, is this on deferral, on the site visit?
Yep, it is. Can we just confirm if the officer has had discussions with owners of the retail park along with the applicant? Because if we go into the site visit, I think we just need to clarify that to make sure that we get the right things sorted whilst it's deferred.
Thank you, Chair. No, we haven't. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to have a discussion with somebody who isn't the applicant about an application site, but the responsibility of that would be with the applicant, and you would expect that either before or after an application is determined, land ownership and access issues would be dealt with outside of the planning process.
Councillor Hunt?
So if I come back, so if this is approved for site visit, we just urge the applicant to speak to the owners of the retail park and hopefully be able to come to that site meeting with some answers of the things that we've raised in this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, given that it looks like we may be going for a deferral, are there any other items people would like considered as part of that deferral? No, in that case, Councillor Kavanagh?
Oh, sorry.
Back to what I was saying before, there is no affordable housing. To me, I mean, looks like it's aiming to be a premium property, something akin to flats alongside the Thames, or also the expensive flats, I assume, on the side of the creek in Faversham. I cannot see that you cannot afford to include affordable housing. And we, with an affordable housing emergency in Swale, should not be entertaining this without affordable housing. And also, obviously, insufficient parking spaces, like former Councillor Whelan said. So if you've got two properties, which one's allowed to have a car parking space?
Councillor Carnell?
Yeah, my main reason is the parking. There's not enough parking spaces, and I can understand they will use the retail park. And at the weekend, that's chock-a-block. So it's chaos. It took me 45 minutes one Saturday to get out of there. I don't go at weekends now because it's not worth it. Spend more fuel and you don't get anywhere. But the parking is a must for me. There's not enough, and you can see what's going to happen.
Okay, those in favour of a site visit, please show. A deferral and site visit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against? 1, 2. Abstentions? 1, 2, 3. We have another site visit. I hope all those involved have heard the debate so that when we come back to discuss this, there are some clearer and more committed answers. That was quite stressful. I'm going to propose a 10-minute break. The next item is 24/501-182 full, the Belgrove Stud Farm at Upchurch. Are we all back? Can I ask the officer for any updates and summary, please?
No updates, Chair. The application... Sorry, bear with me. Should I have this ready? The site is located to the north of Housedoe Lane, outside of the settlement of Lower Housedoe. The application site is shown on the screen there, with the land edged in blue being within the applicant's control, which is the stud farm. The key part of the site is shown there, the existing mobile home on the site, which is a permanent mobile home. They're able to be used full-time with no requirement for it to be removed at any point, although its occupation is restricted to the workers of the stud farm and visitors. That's shown at the top part of within the red line. The other buildings on the site are stables and a welfare and laboratory unit. It's proposed to replace the caravan with a permanent dwelling. That's the proposed dwelling. It measures 16 metres by 8 metres, 6.7 metres tall. Single storey with 2 bedrooms. That's within the gates from Lower Housedoe Lane on the right hand side. That's the access that runs through the site and heads northwards towards the buildings that I've mentioned, and to the left is the existing mobile home. These buildings are the laboratory unit and the one of the stables buildings on the right hand side, and the other stables in the middle. The one on the laboratory building and the newer stables building on the right hand side are a fairly similar sort of scale, form and appearance to the building that's proposed, the dwelling that's now proposed. These are longer views in each direction towards the east and west, where caravans are the dominant feature of both neighbouring properties. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask Mr. Collins, please? When you're ready, press the large button and you'll get 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. You'll probably be pleased to know I'm going to be relatively brief. So I first met the applicant over 2 years ago down on the site, sometime not that long after we were all recovering from the COVID period. And of course, his business, like many others, he's been there since 2010, was struggling to recover. And I said, well, let's just see, you've got to get this going again and demonstrate to the council that this really is a good business that's got longevity. And then since that time, the buildings that Mr. Harrison has just shown you have been erected on site. A big investment, as I'm sure you'll appreciate. And he's logged 2 sets of annual accounts, both of which are very favourable, and the independent assessor who the council use to assess such proposals has confirmed that the viability test that you would look at, is this a functioning business, has it got longevity, and the answer is yes. Everything else, as far as I'm concerned, is covered very nicely in the officer's report, so thank you, Chairman and members.
Thank you. Can I ask Councillor Rosewell, please? Evening, Councillor. I think you know the score.
Good evening. Gary Rosewell, Upchurch Parish Council. Upchurch Parish Council strongly objects to this application for the following reasons. The proposal would significantly alter the rural character and the establishment boundary between the villages of Upchurch and Lower Housedoe. Changing this site from a mobile home to a permanent built residence would set a concerning precedent for the future development in this area, with many mobile homes that occupy land adjacent to it. The existing mobile home was approved for permanent occupation with strict conditions, and on a further application in 2014 to remove these conditions, it was refused. In 2019, an application to modify these conditions was approved, but included site limitations to only one mobile home and that it will not be occupied at any time other than for residence purposes ancillary to the approved use, connected to the business and restricted to the business owners, employees and customers from the stud farm. It's crucial that this site retains its original restrictions on habitation. Should the stud farm fail or cease in the future, the premises must not be allowed to morph into a home or dwelling. The officer's recommendations are to accept. However, there has been no evidence that the planning application is necessary for the continuation of the business. Therefore, it's not a necessary requirement to continue operating as a stud farm if it was refused. The mobile home already meets these requirements without necessitating further development. In the officer's report 3.3, supportive evidence, fails to show any actual evidence of a need for the bungalow. 5.5 agricultural report again shows viability of the business but shows no evidence that the building is needed to continue or will enhance the business. So we believe this application will go against planning policy SD3.3, allocated sites relating well to the existing settlement pattern and the character of the surrounding areas. This application does not meet. Point 4, redevelopment sites within the built area where compatible with settlement characters, amenity, landscape, setting, heritage or biodiversity. This application does not meet. Point 5, development of the location in the open countryside outside the built up area will not be permitted unless supported by national planning policy and or are able to demonstrate that it would contribute to protecting where appropriate or enhance the intrinsic value of the landscape setting and the beauty of the countryside. If permitted, should the business cease or fail, what happens to the building and would it be removed? Last week, UPC was advised to remove its objection to a further commercial lighting at a business on the A2 due to a precedent being set in advance. We wouldn't want this to be a precedent. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll move the officer's report. Thank you. Secondly, Councillor Carnell. Open for debate. Councillor Thompson.
I just wondered if I could go back to the size of the bungalow, if that's okay. And as the parish council just said, justification for need. When I looked this up, because I was looking at this before, that's actually the size of a 4-bedroom bungalow, pretty much. So why is a 2-bedroom bungalow so big with such a very steep pitch roof? It would indicate that it'll probably end up being bigger as well. I'm lost. It doesn't fit with sustainability. Doesn't fit with the site. It'll be going from a 36 square metre mobile home. Is it 142 square metres? I think is it the proposed building?
Do we have a confirmation of that?
For you, Chair, it's, the building would be 16 and a bit by 8, so it's 142 square metres.
That's massive.
A mobile home could be, within the definition of a caravan, could be 120 square metres.
It could be, but it isn't.
Councillor Thompson?
Sorry, Chair. It could be, but it isn't. That's what I'm getting at. I'd have to go with the parish council. I can't see the justification of need again. A smaller building could be, but that's massive.
Okay, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. I think the size of the building, okay, is a good sized building, but as the report covers everything in there, it's sort of okay for the site that's there. My thing is the need for it, and I think condition 3 covers it well to make sure that anybody that is there is going to be working on the site or is a family member of that. And if that was ever to be sold, then we've still got that condition on there that it would have to be the occupier would be working on the site. I do agree with the size of it. We could have some changes there. and I can't see in the conditions that permitted development rights have been removed. Are they there? Which
Can we confirm on
we
that?
could just confirm that, because I was reading through it. Yeah, 4. Sorry, yep, found it. So with that as well, if there was any changes, it would have to come back. So I'm happy with it.
Okay, Councillor Kavanagh.
This is meant to be replacing the bungalow, but I can't see a condition saying that if we are moved to approve this and the bungalow gets approved, does the caravan, there should be a condition for the caravan to be removed, so we don't end up with a bungalow and a caravan and then maybe something extra thrown in. Thank you.
Can we confirm on that?
We can add a condition to that effect comfortably. If I could say as well, Chair, that the mobile home is lawfully there with a planning permission. It will be there. The need for the caravan mobile home has been established before, and it can retain there in perpetuity, subject to the occupation condition. So this is, in effect, the question could be: would you rather have a caravan on the site or a dwelling on the site, and the visual impacts of either? Thank you.
Could we just see the caravan again, please? And that's got permanent permission.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else? Councillor Marchington.
Just a quick one. How long has the caravan been there, please?
Ian? I think it says in the report, but 15 years?
Through you, Chair, I think it was 2010 from memory, yeah.
Councillor Chapman?
Yeah, the mobile home, is it in disrepair? Is it in need of renewing? Or is it okay? Does it serve its purpose as it is now?
Can we confirm the status?
Through you, Chair, I haven't been in it, but it looked perfectly functional as a mobile home, although it is a mobile home.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Right, if there's no other comments, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those against, 1, 2. Abstentions, 1, 2, 3. That has passed. Okay. Yeah. We are nearly at 10 o'clock. Oh. I think we agreed the condition to remove the caravan was agreed, yes? Yeah. Can we suspend standing orders, as I think the next item might take us above 10 o'clock? That agreed? Thank you. Then we'll move on to item 2.5, 22/505-076, outline land at Pheasants Farm, Iwade. I think, Simon, it's you.
Thank you, Chair. And no updates for this item. Okay, the approximately 1.8 hectare site is located on Sheppey Way within Hout Green. This is the site location plan, and here you can see the aerial view of the site. The site is relatively flat and comprises a combination of hard surfacing, grass and scrub. As you can see on this photo, the site has accommodated various temporary uses over the last 25 years or so and has not been in agricultural use during this time. It has been used as a contractor's compound, a depot for open storage, and a depot and for open storage. The lawful use of the site is agriculture. There's another photograph of the site from Bramblefield Lane. The surrounding area is characterised by sporadic residential, agricultural, commercial and community uses and buildings of various forms. There is a Grade 2 listed building, Pheasants Farmhouse, which fronts Sheppey Way directly opposite the site, which you can see here. The site is designated within the local plan as part of the important local countryside gap, which is identified on this map here. Outline planning permission is sought for the erection of up to 42 residential dwellings, including 40% affordable housing to be secured for a Section 106 agreement, as well as open space, drainage, infrastructure and other associated works. Approval of access to the site is sought at this stage and will be provided from Bramblefield Lane, as you can see on this plan. Approval of layout is not sought at this stage, and this layout is indicative and demonstrates that the site can accommodate the quantum of development proposed. The development will actually be accommodated within the light brown area on this parameter plan, which will accommodate the development outside of an area of at risk of surface water flooding, and will safeguard the space indicated in green for landscape buffers. This slide shows the livery scheme referred to in the committee report, which has recently been granted planning permission on the site immediately to the north. This is the top of the second plan for that. And this shows the images of Bramblefield Lane, the cycle and pedestrian route, which is referred to in the report. It's recommended the planning permission be granted, subject to the conditions and the prior completion of the Section 106 agreement as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Alexander Payne?
Chairman, members, thank you. We welcome the officer's positive recommendation for this application. The proposed development seeks to deliver 42 dwellings, with 40% of those being affordable. The site is within walking distance to a range of everyday services and amenities and public transport nodes, including Kemsley Station. The council have found other applications for residential development to the south and north east of this site as being sustainably located for the same reasons, and therefore a consistent approach should be taken for this application. In terms of the landscape, the site does not currently contribute to the tranquility or beauty of the countryside, given the long-standing use of the site as a compound for civil infrastructure projects for the last 25 years or so. Therefore, the appearance and character of the site is currently detrimental to the landscape and countryside, and the proposed development seeks to address this by improving the condition and appearance of the site through new structural landscaping, resulting in a beneficial effect on the wider landscape and visual amenity of the site itself. The proposal would therefore not undermine the important local countryside gap, which in this area is small in width and includes a range of built form, including commercial and industrial buildings, residential dwellings, a crematorium and strategic road infrastructure. Therefore, this part of the gap is already characterised by development and does not contribute to the purpose of the gap. In terms of coalescence of adjoining settlements, Hout Green is not a named satellite village in which the gap seeks to retain an individual character for or the setting of. The A249 in the proposed landscape buffer in the application to the east of the A249 maintains an appropriate separation from Sittingbourne between the site. It is noted that the proposal will result in a less substantial harm to the significance of the setting of a listed building. However, the public benefits of the proposed residential development, which addresses shortfall in provision of housing, including affordable housing, would outweigh the less substantial harm in accordance with paragraph 208 of the NPPF. In summary, the proposal would not result in to a degree of harm that would demonstrably outweigh the multiple economic, social and environmental benefits of the development, primarily focused on delivery of much needed market and affordable housing on a sustainably located site at a time when the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, along with the associated benefits of residential expenditure, open space and landscaping. Therefore, the planning balance is compellingly in favour of outline planning permission being granted, and I ask you to support the officer's recommendation and grant planning permission for the proposed development, subject to the conditions that have been proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll move the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Councillor Bourne. Anybody like to speak on this one? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Chair. Do we know if the, and I can't see, if I put my glasses on, do we know if the applicant has negotiated with an RP for the affordable housing? because we know that there are thousands of 106 houses in this country that developers wait until it's too late to find an RP. They are not of the quality and standard RPs require, ergo they cannot be used for affordable housing. So we should be ensuring as best we can that developers contact RPs and negotiate well before any planning application comes to this committee. Otherwise, it's great saying 40% affordable housing, but if they're not fit for purpose, we're not going to get them. So are we aware of through the chair, are we aware of any discussions that have been taken place on this? Because I think it is important for this and it is important for the future. Having said that, I'm very pleased that some developers actually take our policies seriously. And when we put down that we expect affordable housing on sites, they don't start pleading poverty. Thank you.
Can we be sure that the affordable housing is deliverable?
Well, in answer to the question around discussions with an RP, I'm not aware that they've had discussions. The affordable housing will be secured for a Section 106 agreement, and the applicant can't make changes without the council's agreement to that Section 106 agreement for a 5-year period. So it would be, there is a degree of security of securing that affordable housing, but obviously the applicant can come back and seek to amend that once permission had been granted, subject to a 106.
And are we ensuring that the houses that are built are capable of being, are of a size that a provider would take them on?
The applicant is seeking outline planning permission for all matters except for access only. All other matters are reserved. So the size and configuration of the houses is something that will be dealt with at reserved matters stage.
But we could condition it at that stage to ensure that we don't get a load of houses too short.
Yes.
Carly, I think this may be for you. What is the position, or what is our, where would we stand with requiring proof that the social housing aspect is deliverable?
Sorry, I missed a word there.
Whereas the council's position on ensuring that the social or the affordable housing aspect is actually deliverable.
Okay, so Simon said in this case it would be secured via a Section 106. So that would be if you're granting planning permission subject to that Section 106, that's the legal document, they are then required to deliver that. If they then further down the road can't get an RP engaged for any reason, then they need to come back to the council and explain that. We then have provision in our policy that allows for a cascade mechanism and looking at other options, and they would have to do that in discussion with the council, and then if there was an agreement to make any changes, we would have to vary the Section 106. So they can't do anything without the council's input and the council's agreement.
Unless they go to appeal. Can we not require them to have evidence from a registered provider that they're willing to take the houses on? Is that not something that's been done elsewhere?
We don't have that at this stage. So at this stage, in terms of the outline, we would usually fix it by the Section 106. At the point, if they were to come back and say they wanted to make changes, we would ask them what the reasons are. As I think what we're alluding to here is that the situation that we're currently in nationally is that there's a lot of RPs that aren't coming forward and taking on a lot of units because it's not viable for them, and so they're needing to look at grant funding from Homes England, and then they can't obtain that grant funding if it's secured by Section 106. It's an odd situation that we're in. And it's a problem that a lot of councils are facing across the country. So at that point, if they was to come back to us and say that it's a viability issue, they would then need to provide us with that evidence to demonstrate that. That would be looked at by officers in the planning department as well as the affordable housing officer to make sure that what they're saying is accurate, and testing that with a number of RPs. Our affordable housing officer has a very good relationship with the RPs in the area, so she would be testing that information at that time. So it would be at that point. So we would secure it and then look at any alterations if that issue came up on this site.
Okay, Councillor Hudson.
I hear what's being said, Mr. Chairman, but you know as well as I do that is it 106 dwellings in Swale that have not been taken up by RPs because of the quality and size. But thank you.
Councillor Hunt.
I think on the affordable housing, I can understand the concerns, but then we've got a policy that we've asked for, and this is delivering on our policy. So whether we think it's a good idea or not, that's a change in the policy that we need if we think registered providers aren't going to take them on. But this site, I think a site visit is probably not going to be needed. But on the photos we've got, you could see the site. It is an absolute mess, and we call this our important countryside gap, which is a bit of a joke. I think housing on this site is the best option for it. It is a mess. It has lots of fly tipping on, and it could be used for other uses as well. That's definitely not agriculture. So I think this is the best use of the site, and it's in a sustainable location, even though it appears to be outside in the countryside.
Yeah, we do need to be looking at why we allow agricultural land to become less than agricultural. Councillor Marchington.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Could I go back to the map, please? Part of my question's already been answered. Can we see a wider view point to see the surrounding lands, please? It's because you're trapped between two roads. It makes a natural barrier. Yeah, I want to go the other way. Do you want to see the... Make it small, yeah. Sorry, yeah, I wasn't voicing correctly. Okay. Yeah, keep going. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, please. Yeah. 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 Well, that'll do. The land, yeah, that's perfect. The land shown there to the north. What is the current state of that ground? Because is that like a next stage on? If that's the worry. Are you creating another hamlet? You know, in the future.
You
talk
can't
about countryside gap areas. You know,
really take on what may or may not happen in future. Yeah. Planning permission was given at Bobbin Carbreakers, which is directly opposite.
Yes, I know them well.
But they haven't started, so I think that permission has lapsed. Yeah.
No, okay.
Is there anything you wanted to add, Simon?
In terms of that site immediately to the north that you were just talking about, that was on this slide here. That's a livery, commercial livery scheme that's recently been granted planning permission.
Looking at the relationship to Bobby, he's actually trapped in, so it's not going to. It doesn't look like an office keeps spreading. So you've got only one place to go.
Yep. Councillor Kavanagh.
It might not be officially so, but to me, as an amateur at this, it looks like a brownfield site. It definitely doesn't look countryside. I think housing would be a real benefit. 40% affordable housing, well, I'm certainly up for that. However, There's nothing specifically about numbers of parking spaces. Condition 26 on page 244 states, no dwelling should be occupied until vehicle parking spaces have been provided. So that means the homes could be built and then we might be told there's only room for 2 parking spaces. That to me is back to front. We need to know how many parking spaces, and the map there doesn't show any. Thank you.
That would come forward as the detailed planning application. Councillor Winkles?
Actually, the previous 2 speakers have preempted what I was going to say, actually.
Excellent.
Basically, I think yeah, that's quite correct. Councillor Cavanagh has touched on it. It's basically a brownfield site. I know the area quite well, as I say many times on this committee, and I'm totally in favour of housing development on it. Thank you very much.
I would point out there had been a planning application on here previously refused as it's loss of important local countryside gap conflicts with the Swale settlement strategy, and the site was considered unsustainable. That's always a movable feast. We should be wary of just signing things off in countryside gaps. They are our policy. I understand that the land is a mess, and I see that the land next to it doesn't look too agricultural either, to the south. But I am concerned that we blithely give permission in countryside gaps, undermining our own policies, not bearing in mind that I supported giving permission in the Breakers Yard. That's because that was brownfield. This shouldn't be brownfield. It should be agricultural. The fact that it blatantly isn't doesn't alter the fact that it is supposed to be agricultural, it is supposed to be in a countryside gap. So I do think, those policies are there for a reason. But if anybody else, Councillor Carnell.
Yeah, I mean, I go past that quite a lot, and it is an eyesore. Or when the agent said about, it's close to Kemsley railway station, it is if you walk down the footpath and the cycle path and on the way down Bramblefield Lane, which is quite a long walk. So I should imagine the majority of people will drive right the way round to get to Kemsley. But yeah, I don't like it as it is now, so I will support it.
Councillor Thompson.
I understand what you're saying about agricultural use in the past. It clearly hasn't been used for that for a long time. That's a concern, but with that in mind, the fact that it's a big slab of concrete by the looks of things at the moment means that the soil's probably not a lot of good underneath. But it's more to do with the design, which I imagine will come under the detailed, in that we've declared a climate emergency. Let's not hope that the developer, the chap just now, will deliver much of the same. I think we should look at that and think, look, it's only £3,000 more to put these up to Passive House standard, change your building materials, orientation, think about all of those things when designing and building it. So we can try and move towards that and not just be building more problems for the future. But definitely wholeheartedly for 40% affordable. Whether that ends up being some social, don't know. Love to see some accessible as well, because of still a shortage. But again, that will come in the detail, hopefully. So thanks.
I think this is a valid point to make it outline, but when it comes back, assuming you agree at all, which is looking a bit likely, but it does, it is aligned to maximise potential. Often, as in this case, you take the piece of land in isolation, you just draw a ring road and put the houses round it. There is an opportunity here to indicate that we would like to see, when it comes back for proper design, that they are angled in a way to maximise solar and heat retention. So if that could be borne in mind when we send it back for detailed?
We can certainly do that, Chair. And this layout that you're seeing here is not anticipated to come forward in that form. The applicant has put forward some design parameters to amend the layout, so there will be a different orientation to some of these houses in any event is expected, and we can certainly take on board the requirement to improve the orientation. And I would point out that condition 33 does require details of materials and measures to increase energy efficiency and thermal performance and reduce carbon emissions as part of the reserve matters.
Lovely. So in that case, those in favour of the officer's recommendation, please show. Lots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Those against. So that's carried. Whilst I have the floor, when we discussed the land west of Warden Road, and we're having a site visit, I was quite serious. I think those grey ones looked awful. I think rather than have to have that debate next time, if that can be borne in mind for the site visit, because, well, it wouldn't take a lot to make them look nicer. Okay, well, thank you all for your time there. We have Section 5 appeals. Does anybody wish to talk about any of the appeals? Councillor Carnell.
Yes, I was involved with when it went to appeal Boulevard Drive. They brought a bit of green, the developer, and as you know, we tried to get it village green status, but we failed in the end. Then they appealed our decision, you know, to stop them building these houses, but it went to the inspectorate and he refused their appeal. So everyone's very happy. My residents are anyway. So thank you very much.
Yeah. And I hope that sends out a message to other speculators that these bits of green land that are used by people are not suitable for housing. Anybody want to speak? Councillor Hunt?
Only say once again, well done to the officers, because they're all delegates refusal, apart from the committee one, which was recommendation to refuse as well. So well done, officers.
Yeah, well done. 3 out of 3. A star. Okay. The planning working group meeting. It's the site visit. Right, so we have one more item, which I have lost in all my bits of paper.
Right by your glass. Not the glasses, your drinking glass.
Right. The minutes of the meeting, of the site meeting at land north of Perry Lee, we discussed it earlier. Of the 4 councillors who bothered to attend, are you in agreement that these minutes are a fair and accurate reflection? Can we agree these then? Agreed? Excellent, thank you. Agreed. And a Merry Yule and Happy Christmas and whatever else you celebrate.